Sunday morning rain is falling. Steal some cover, share some skin.
First and foremost, that all of my classes are important. At first I thought, oh my gosh, we're just taking the same class over and over again. But now I'm really understanding that I'm learning so many different things about one drug that I use so many times in the ICU, but really didn't understand in depth how it was working. So I'm going to kind of talk through, I'll use NEO or phenylephrine, and I'll show you guys what I have been learning in each of my classes about this one drug. In our autonomic section of Pharm, we were going over adrenergic receptors, alpha and beta, and we did a very in-depth review of that last semester in physiology. We dove into how depolarization works, what happens when something binds to a receptor, and how it signals a pathway and causes certain things to happen, aka vasoconstriction or dilation, depending on what receptor you're talking about. So now, moving from physiology last semester to pharmacology now, we are specifically touching on certain drugs that we would use to utilize the body's response to these receptors. So even without the drug phenylephrine, we learned that when something binds to an alpha-1 receptor, it causes vasoconstriction in the vasculature. This increases your SVR, and this will then in turn increase your blood pressure. However, at the same time, there are receptors, baroreceptors in your carotid, places in your heart, that will sense this increase in blood pressure and say, whoa, 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 I need to slow this down, and will change what it can affect. And those baroreceptors can affect heart rate, so it will decrease your heart rate. That's called reflex bradycardia. So, moving on to pharmacology this semester, we're talking about phenylephrine. Phenylephrine is an alpha-1 agonist. So when we give this drug, we are binding to those alpha receptors, causing vasoconstriction, which is causing an increase in blood pressure, but at the same time, we are expecting that there will be reflex bradycardia. I have found that my basics of anesthesia course is kind of like a real-world application course. And so in keeping in line with the phenylephrine theme, I would learn in this basics course when and what situations would I most frequently be using phenylephrine. And I could say that I would give this drug when my blood pressure is dipping. Now, a lot of the times as anesthetists, we know that we're going to cause a dip in blood pressure, say on induction when we give propofol. Propofol, the magical white liquid, causes massive vasodilation, which will then drop your blood pressure in contrast with alpha. So we know that we're dropping our blood pressure, and when we're inducing someone to go to sleep, when I give this phenylephrine drug, I will help this decrease in blood pressure and also be able to bring the heart rate down at the same time. So a knowledge of how this drug works is very, very important in the selection and what times I would use it. And that's what that basics of anesthesia course is really helpful for. We apply this in my Thursdays and Fridays simulation because there it's also real world, but we're actually physically in our OR simulation rooms. So we are thinking of PAGES, which is our mnemonic for our emergency drugs: phenylephrine, atropine, glycopyrrolate, ephedrine, and succinylcholine. But phenylephrine is the top. Like I said, it's an emergency drug that we use for low blood pressure. So I'd reach for this if I'm looking at the monitor and seeing a dip in my blood pressure that's a little too low for my liking. But I'll know that it's an alpha-1 agonist. It's going to cause vasoconstriction, increase my blood pressure, but also I might have some reflex bradycardia. I know that the vial comes in 10 milligrams per milliliter. I know that I need to reconstitute and dilute it, which I'll do before, to have a final concentration of 100 mics per milliliter. So, but then I also know that I might give this in 40 to 100 or 400, depending on how severe the case is, micrograms at a time per push. But while I'm, masking my patient or something, I might have to be masking with one hand, having my syringe in the other, and looking at how many mLs I'm giving, and knowing that in my head, each ml is worth 100 mics per milliliter. So all that can be fine and dandy in my head. But in the OR, when things are getting rough, or there's so many different things I need to be paying attention to, I need to be confident in my knowledge in my head, and also have the dexterity to be having one hand of mine occupied and being able to, quickly look at my labeled syringe, grab my IV and be able to connect it and push my drugs. So that's what simulation is very, very important for. Everybody can learn paper, but how can you apply it to real world? Like I said right before, I thought naively that I was like, man, these classes are so similar. No, I just showed you one drug, phenylephrine, and how I've applied it in every single one of my classes. That is anesthesia school. That is why it's so important that we go through this. It's rigorous, yes, but I can see even more so now how important my profession is, and I'm so thankful to be going through this. And I can't wait to see myself look back at these videos and be like, whoa, look how much you've learned. Even me being able to talk about phenylephrine to this extent, I'm like, wow, I've learned so much. So you guys keep pushing. I hope you guys like this video about what I've been learning. And yeah, I'll see you guys next time for our next vlog / school update. Bye guys.